Folks, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to a special Zimperium webinar. One of the topic we're going to talk about today, obviously something that's absolutely relevant to us every day. We have some guests from our friends at Pay Felix. We have Andrew and Noah. They'll introduce themselves in a minute. And this is a topic that all of us are very passionate about, because I think the one thing that's fundamentally changed for all of us in the last 2 years has been how we consume stuff, right? From buying to delivery. And a big part of that consumption behavior is how we pay, right? I go everywhere now and I seem to never take out my credit card. I'm always tapping my phone onto some form of a device and never use my card anymore, right? And we're going to talk about these systems and how suddenly in 2 years we've moved to this contactless model, and how is the world dealing with it? How have we gotten to this point? With no further ado, Noah, Andrew, welcome to Zimperium's webinar. Noah, I'll let you kind of introduce yourself and we'll go from there.
Awesome. Well, a pleasure to be here, and thank you very much for the audience. Again, my name is Noah Fitzgerald. I'm Chief Operations Officer for Felix Payment Systems. Been in the payments industry for over 25 years, across really just about every facet of the industry. Focused my attentions and energies really on identifying and working through disruptive technologies within the sector to see how to really shift the world's usage of payments in general, and really how commerce has been performed.
Great. No, just give it a second, Andrew, before. Allison, can you hear us? I just saw Jay mention that he's not able to hear us for some reason.
Yep, I've confirmed the audio is good.
Okay, sorry guys. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yep.
Great, thanks a lot. And as Noah said, thank you, Krishna, everyone at Zimperium, and for the audience, it's good to be here. So Andrew Cole, Chief Financial Officer at Felix. I actually just joined the company a couple of months ago, but have been tracking the business for well over 2 years and know the co-CEOs very well. I come from obviously a finance background. I was in mergers and acquisitions at KPMG before coming to the company, but a little bit more relevant to the industry. I was working for a company called MobiWave, which was one of the, I'd say, pioneers of the MPOS, SoftPOS space, as well as an early founder at Lightspeed POS, a POS unicorn here in Canada.
Fantastic. Again, thank you both. Again, hot topic, right? I don't know how you folks feel. Like, let's say I don't use my card anymore. It seems like you just throw away my wallet. Right? And I
throw anything at that terminal, get it going.
Right.
So, let's get into this, right? Obviously, you folks are doing something unique, innovative. You're a market leader. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your solution and why it's gathered so much attention?
Yeah, it's a great place to start. I mean, as I said, my focus has really been on identifying disruptive technologies and payments. And I was introduced to Felix Payments just over 2 years ago. It was originally born out of Australia between two brothers and some friends that are all software engineers and developers. And they basically had identified a pretty unique space within the payment sector, particularly around mobile payments, and was kind of trudging down that road as Andrew was talking about MobiWave and how to be able to leverage the existing devices that we all have in our hands, a smartphone, and turning that device into a more relevant payment acceptance device. There's an embedded NFC reader within every smartphone that's being manufactured today. And why is that only being used to push payments rather than actually being able to receive payments? So, as that was explored and kind of conceptualized a bit further, what they've identified is that there is a really unique positioning and opportunity in the space to really start shifting the industry from the traditionally onboard kernel solution sets, and which, kind of give a little bit of detail on that. So a kernel is typically the operating system or the key function program that is embedded into a payment terminal, that's secured and designed to work and communicate with the card networks to authenticate the card. Now, again, historically, that has always been onboard a device. And what we're doing is actually bringing that kernel framework and putting it into the cloud. One of my colleagues, in fact, Andrew had mentioned him earlier, our CCO, had, I think, put together the best analogy. We've seen the music industry and the entertainment industry, and the music industry in particular, go from the gramophone to, which evolved to records, which evolved to reel-to-reel, to cassettes, to 8-tracks, or 8-tracks then to cassettes, excuse me, then to CDs. And now, where does everyone go to get their music? Everyone's going to the cloud. So it's the Spotify's, the Apple Musics, the Amazon Musics, et cetera. And it's really been adopted not only within the music industry, but other various components of industry. Again, entertainment is one, a various array of others. But why has not the payment industry made that leap, with so many advances in technology? So what we've done is actually created the world's first payment infrastructure that is able to process retail payments completely in the cloud. This is,
Wow.
what and as a nerd in the payments industry for as long as I've been here, to me, this is, equivalent to putting a man on the moon. It's been something that the industry has been trying to accomplish for just about a decade, and not able to reach that resolution. And we've been able to accomplish that. And we see this as really the tipping point for the evolution and the next step in the evolutionary process of advancing payments in general.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? As we obviously, we've been speaking for a couple of days and getting ready for the webinar, but I always notice when we talk about point of sale, when I go and shop, I rarely pay attention to what I'm tapping on, right? But since we've been talking, when I notice what is it that I'm tapping my phone on, seems like there are so many different types of hardware. And then I start thinking, how are you ever going to keep up? Right? It's not like Apple and Android are pushing out updates every month to, certify, keep it safe. And, when we're talking, I'm just like, wow, right? There are a lot of players, a lot of different terminals that we're tapping on, and that's got to be expensive.
Yeah, that's a great point, Christian. I mean, the legacy terminals that are out there in circulation that we all interact with on a daily basis, every time we go and utilize any type of cashless payment, whether you go to the grocery store, the gas station, micro merchants, wherever it might be, you're tapping your card or you're inserting your card into some device. And that device, many of them are decades old, that have not been updated and are not utilizing the most secure technologies and conforming with the regulatory requirements. And that's because it's just historically been such a difficult process to talk to a merchant and say, well, there's been an update from the network or the institution of payments. We're going to have to replace all your terminals, at an exorbitant expense, or take all those terminals back, re-inject them with the updates, and then resend them to you. Either way, it's a massive undertaking and a great pains to the merchant and to the consumer. And that's where we see cloud technology and being able to have that component that is critical to be able to handle the security and the communications with these devices, because now they're not tethered to being a one-to-one solution. They can all connect directly into our cloud framework. Now you can ubiquitously, update all of those terminals instantaneously as updates come out. So this is why cloud technology is such a critical component into this whole really conversation. It's really about creating and eliminating the bottlenecks that is traditionally there with manufactured hardware solutions.
That's amazing. Thank you. Diving a little bit deeper, right? Obviously, where our worlds come together is mobile, right? Our focus is protecting mobile apps and mobile devices, right? Because mobile pretty much rules the world right now, right? It has been the most disruptive platform that I've seen yet. And I'm sure IoT will be something that could get interesting as well. How do you folks look at, what does this, it's a complex problem, like you said, right? And how do you start? There's so many people involved. Like, the payment workflow, every time I look at it, blows my mind how many players are involved for you to buy something, right? For a consumer, it's frictionless. It's like, oh, I tapped my phone, right? I got my ice cream, but kind of what goes on to make that happen? I mean, talk about this problem. I mean, how complex it is.
Yeah, I mean, the ecosystem of payments, a lot of people, you're right. From the general consumer, they look at it as, it's just the way that we do business. This is the way we present commerce. We don't really know what happens in the back end of that whole process. But you're absolutely right. There's a number of players involved within that ecosystem, from the company that actually, the bank that actually issues you the card, to the acquirers or the bank acquirers that actually handle the transaction approvals, to the technology providers that are actually delivering the terminals and things of that nature, to the card brands, the Visas, the MasterCards, American Express, Discovers, et cetera. The merchants themselves, obviously, they play a critical role in the entire ecosystem. So it's definitely a very complex space, and add to that other levels of regulatory and compliance requirements to be able to make sure that these devices and solutions are secure, that fraud is kept at bay. All of these things play into essentially this really simple process of being able to take a payment, but there's a lot of things that are happening in that background that create a lot of bottlenecks for new companies, new entrants to get into the space. Mobile solution providers and mobile POS solutions, have to go through great lengths to be able to get their product to market, and the time and the expense of that is exorbitant and very off-putting for many, and that's why you don't see as many entrants into this space as you might have in the past. More and more regulatory requirements are being applied to us in the space, and that certainly is where we see what our technology is able to really help alleviate for really everyone within that ecosystem, whether it be the acquirers, the banks, the merchants, et cetera. This is where we see our technology as really being, again, that enabler to help alleviate those bottlenecks and processes.
Yeah, I was going to wait to ask this question, but I'm intrigued. When we talk about your solution and someone asks me, and the way I conceptualize it, right, it's a software only payment solution, right? You're not married to hardware. I mean, think about it, right? It's an application, put it on whatever hardware you want, but you're not married to hardware where it's expensive. And I mean, how are the hardware vendors dealing with this, right? Because you're obviously disrupting their world. Are they reaching out to partner? What's been their take, or are they adapting to what you folks are doing?
I'll let Andrew touch on this one. Go ahead, Andrew, why don't you jump on that?
It's funny. I actually really like Noah's analogy before when it came to, music into the cloud. He had started all the way back with vinyl and monograms, and maybe somebody listening to that says, oh yeah, that's going way back into time. But that's kind of how it is in this industry. And it has been such a kind of slow moving process with these terminals. And, this is the kind of revolutionary part of it. How is it impacting them? It's tough. We've spoken to a lot of them. Some of them get it and some of them don't. I think that they understand from a business point of view, terminals are still just so entrenched in the industry. They are there. And so many of them think, well, we just have such a deep connection to the industry. We're not going anywhere. I don't mean to be rude, but, that is definitely, I think, a blind side that they're not taking into consideration. Technology is extremely disruptive. It can come like a tidal wave. And, I think Felix's potential here and his technology is really, really quite powerful and disruptive. So I would like to see more of them pay attention and be on board. But I think the reality is that they have kind of such a focus in their own pathways and things that they're working on that they're not partnering up yet.
Yeah, no. And the reason I ask is, we've for the longest time we've been securing mobile devices, right? And in the 6 years I've been at Zimperium, that mobile device has just gotten better and more powerful than ever, right?
Yeah.
What, up to 6 cameras, or how many you can fit, right?
Yeah.
And every time we talk to vendors, especially people invested in hardware, right? They want to do more and more and more on mobile.
For sure.
And they're like, whether it's a mobile app or a mobile device, they want us to secure it all, right?
Yeah.
Almost like an inevitable wave, even they see it
For sure.
coming. So no, I absolutely understand. I think this is something we are going to embrace, right? Whether we like it or not, you know, moving, being unmarried to hardware and having that choice, especially on mobile, is going to be tremendous.
Yeah.
A little bit about go-to-market, I guess, right? Obviously, you folks have a solution. What is your go-to-market? I mean, how are you folks taking this unique technology to the market?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, when you're working at as a cloud kernel technology solution, you know, we're really at the very foundation. We're really working within the foundation of the payments ecosystem, where the terminal is maybe at the tip of the spear. That's what the client interface is. You know, this cloud concept, or it's beyond concept at this point, but the cloud framework there is really managing at the bowels of the payments industry, and we really see this as, again, that kind of next step in the evolution of that payments ecosystem. So from the market perspective, you know, there's really different use cases for our cloud technology. And really the first one that we're bringing to market is what we call our Felix terminal solution. It's a tap to phone solution that is designed to essentially, again, activate the NFC reader within a smartphone and device. It's a very simple application layer that opens that NFC reader, enables that tap acceptance or that tap to take place, and then pushes that payload up into our cloud framework for it to do what a typical terminal would do at that point: connect to the processor, run the transaction. So, you know, because we're now looking at solutions that are, you know, hardware, I wouldn't say hardware free, because you still have to have the cell phone or the mobile device, but you don't have to have a third-party reader, a dongle, or some other device or a pin pad tethered to that smartphone in order to take payments. So, you know, from the merchants landscape and the businesses that like this technology, you know, we're talking to micro merchants, SMBs, small business merchants, merchants that really focus on mobility, whether it be delivery, you know, outside service sales, what have you. People that are, and you know, because again, there's no hardware, other merchants that are looking for a lower cost entry point to be able to accept payments. And because it's a software only solution, it can scale infinitely and instantaneously. So when you're working in an enterprise level business and need ability to add additional devices, whether it might be a venue where you're having pop-ups for you know, concessions or things of that nature, the ability to scale that instantaneously offers some great value and benefits. Overall, though, our business model is really focusing on enabling really the entire ecosystem, everyone from the banks to software developers, mobile application developers, hardware manufacturers, the terminal manufacturers, other POS integrators, the banks themselves. I mean, imagine a bank, for example, you know, we'll just Wells Fargo, and you go into your Wells Fargo banking application, and in that application, you have a feature there that says process a card payment, and it opens up a payment terminal right there on your phone that allows you to be able to take a payment from anyone. Now that's the power of what that terminal solution or Felix terminal tap to phone technology is doing. Now this is not a new technology to the market. As Andrew had said, he was part of MobiWave, which was an early entrant to the space. But in North America, which is where our target focus is today, there is really no other players that are really bringing tap to phone technology into the space. It's really been focused primarily in emerging and evolving economies, whether it be in Africa, Asia, Europe, also where there's a higher concentration of contactless payments. The US market is significantly lagging behind with respect to the rest of the world when it comes to contactless. But yeah, that's pretty much where our targets are at, is really enabling and utilizing our technology to enable other solution providers to be able to accept payments within their systems.
Yeah, and what's also nice about this is, and we've always seen this, is especially if you are a mobile app, right? The the idea of, hey, can I just white label your app and use it as mine is really attractive, right? Especially for small businesses, because we, even from a security standpoint, when we provide our zip solution, which is, protect your device.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of the telcos, right? Same thing. They're like, we know your solution works. It's innovative. It's market leader. We want to leverage it rather than trying to reinvent the wheel. And that's what I kind of like about a lot of these apps is you could brand them, right? And just make it your own, and it allows you to move, right? Speak to market, like you said. You don't have to do all this yourself. You folks already have the technology, the certifications, and you have the recipe for success. So that's fantastic.
It is, and that's a great point. I mean, white labeling is definitely a great option, and I think we definitely need to talk further about the security sides of mobile POS enablement, because it's, a lot of people will think, well, I can just integrate a solution and then my app is good to go, but it's a lot more involved than that, as we all know. So
it is funny because I was telling my wife is I don't know anymore how many apps on my phone accept payments or have my payment information. I've lost track.
Yeah.
Right? In the name of convenience, I've probably given every app on the planet my payment info. It just is just poor decision making, but convenience, right? I think this no touch, low touch economy has kind of made contactless so attractive. It's hard to deny. So whenever we talk about mobile payment in general, right, there's a lot, it's a vast space, right? Filled with, first thing people think about is, oh, my payment information. Then they think about fraud. Then they think about compliance. They're like, oh my God, there seem to be so many applications. What is it that most people don't know or get wrong about this space? Right?
Yes. So Krishna, I'll jump in here. So I think, just talking difference between mobile app and, mobile payment application. I mean, this is, completely two different worlds, and, you're not even really playing the same sport. Entering into payment level security requirements requires a lot more expertise and a lot more resources. And I think that's probably something that a lot of folks can understand, but really maybe can't really comprehend, going into areas and trying to navigate through, PCI compliance and comprehensive security testing, evaluation, multiple layers of encryption, L2 kernel certification with the brands, acquire certifications, and much, much more. The level of scrutiny and the level of security is really quite intense, getting into this area. And it follows really kind of all the same, standards and requirements that you would have with any type of, terminal or payment application. But I think what's also interesting that a lot of folks don't know is kind of the evolution of security standards. And, not to bring them up again, but, as a pioneer, MobiWave and started this in 2013. And, you think about something like that and what Square has done. You look at, the standards going from, CPOC to SPOC and eventually MPOC, which Felix will be at the forefront of. It's really quite impressive to see the evolution. And I think it's testament to the fact that the industry is ready for these products. It's coming. They want to carve out, space for this type of technology in market, and really quite fortunate to have found Zimperium early on, to not only provide, code protection with SedShield, but also to kind of help us navigate the twists and turns along the way.
Yeah, it's a great point. I was looking up, reading something Visa had published, and it's insane. It still blows my mind. They said in 2018, the percentage of mobile payments of all the payments was still at 1%.
Mm-hmm.
Today, 1 of 10 in the US is almost a mobile payment. Right. And they were talking about the fact that mobile payments in the US haven't been around, I think 2014, which kind of overlaps with what you're saying is the advent of, this idea. And it's grown immensely, right?
Yeah.
I think even for them, mobile payments have grown, 850% according to them.
Yep.
And for us, this is very interesting as a mobile security company, because when we look at our technology to, whether it's application shielding, right, or runtime protection, a lot of companies that want to work with us, there is a compliance mandate for them, right? Oh, to go to market, we have to use PCI compliant security. And when they look at solutions, and they like what we do because it's not just shielding, but it's got enough in there for the PCI, the EMV codes of the world to say, the security is up to standard.
Exactly.
Right? And we're getting pulled into a lot of those conversations. So what you guys are saying, absolutely relevant, is mandates coming on top and saying, not any security, but the right security.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you're not used to it, it can be a whirlwind. And, this is kind of alluding, or what I was alluding to with Zimperium, is you really need to partner up with the right folks and understand where your level of expertise ends and where you have to rely on partners, you know what I mean, to get you across the line.
Yeah, absolutely. And even for us, when I go and look at PCI or EMV code, what baffles me is there are requirements, there are specifications, there are a bunch of other terms with 400 people in there.
Yep.
All trying to set some kind of a standard to protect human data.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And security is, PCI obviously cares about card data, and we're having a lot of those conversations, but it is complex, even for a normal company to navigate. It's insane.
Insane is an understatement.
Yeah,
it can definitely drive you insane.
It probably is. So, we've talked a little bit about the technology, right? But how does this, once someone implements your tech, what does it look like, right? What is that? We have your terminal, we've embraced it. What does that look like once you have, right? What can the business or your customer, what does he experience?
Yeah, I mean, it's we have, like Noah alluded to before, kind of a few use cases. Felix Terminal, of course, using the cloud EMV, payment technology, and having the kernel in the cloud really enables so many use cases. And it's actually I'm happy that we have the slide up here, because, it really has so many versions and so many use cases that we can have. I think ones that are particularly interesting, pay at the table, restaurant industry hit particularly hard during COVID, and having kind of all of those transactions slip into a card not present environment, having a technology like Felix brings that back into the retail world. Transport, pay at the pump is another big one, working very closely right now with a very interesting petroleum company, a big petroleum player, as they are having, and in that industry being hit with its own series of pain points, trying to upgrade their facilities and upgrade their technologies through North America and stuff like that. Terminal is also very interesting. It's you have that interface, that application layer that you can use, as Noah had mentioned, you embed directly into an application, press a button, pop it open, and of course having it as a cloud technology, and what we're seeing as this kind of secondary advantage to so many of these commercial opportunities is easy integrations to POS, printers, and other software platform.
Yeah, no, that absolutely. I mean, some of the use cases, pay at the table, kind of resonate with us very heavily as well, right?
Yeah.
QR code.
QR code, yeah.
Headed to India, and I cannot believe how much they've embraced QR code.
For sure.
Just scan to pay or scan to pay, either way, right? Hospitals, vendors on the street.
Absolutely.
Right? Have some kind of a mobile app, and make it easy for people to pay. And that's another area I think for us as Zimperium, we've spent a lot of time is securing whatever is in your app, right? Obviously, payment information is key, but we spend a lot of time helping the company that owns the app kind of understand that you gotta, obfuscate your app, protect your app, right? It's surprising to me how many times we find ourselves reminding people, you put your app in a public app store, right? And you're trying to protect an app that is under someone else's control.
Exactly.
And then you throw the payment information and the payment processing and all this into it, right? It's something everyone has to think about, right? It's hard to ignore when you kind of think about these things.
Absolutely.
Complicated space, right? To say the least. Now, I know we've talked about this, but what are some key barriers that you folks had to overcome, right? In the last, at least, I'm sure there were plenty, but the ones I guess you learned the most, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's barriers to entry for sure, definitely, and it's not to beat on a dead horse on this webinar here, but it's really the regulatory standards and compliance of the industry. They, as we spoke about, they are immense. They are ever changing. New technologies kind of moves the goalpost, and you have to stay agile in that sense. A lot of times we have delays from external parties. We've had that more recently, especially during the summer months, and COVID, of course, changed everything for a lot of folks, and having that global health pandemic come in and really put folks out of an innovation mindset for a little while and just into a reactive mode. Hopefully to have come out of that now. Putting my CFO hat on for a second, I can assure you, startups in the payment space need ample liquidity and kind of that business patience. And not to sound too cheesy here, but frankly, time is money, and to have that patience really requires that liquidity, patient investors, the right partners and stuff like that to make sure that you get over those roadblocks.
Yeah, no, for 100% understand. And as we get more involved with PCI and EMVCo, right, we're also starting to realize the aspects of security that really matter for solutions like these, right? And that's something we're spending a great amount of time and money on ourselves, just from a technology standpoint, because it is critical.
Absolutely.
So obviously, this is kind of where our roads meet. You folks leverage what is our application shielding technology. Why don't you talk a little bit about how you leverage this? What does this help you do?
Noah, do you want to jump in on this one?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that one. So, yeah, I think you really talked about it, Krishna, earlier. Is it's code obfuscation and application shielding, which are really critical components to making sure that people can't reverse engineer your technology and your IP, number one, but also again securing the data elements that are there and being transmitted within that, so that there's various layers and levels of encryption and keys that prevent solutions from mimicking ours, or from looking and smelling and tasting like ours, but are working as kind of an under the black market type of solution that's trying to steal data and not actually providing a true service. So working with you guys has been, again, as I said early on, was really a blessing to us. We didn't know a lot of what was necessary or needed around code obfuscation, security shielding, but essentially we've leveraged various aspects of your technology into various aspects of what we're doing, not just in our mobile application, but also within some of the elements within our cloud infrastructure, as we have again various layers of security there. Things like being able to prevent other third parties from falsely integrating or connecting to our API sets, and making sure that those keys are secured in vaults that are just really impenetrable.
Yeah, this is every time we speak about shielding an app, I think what people tend to gravitate towards obfuscation, but I really like what you said, because we're constantly educating people that it's not just obfuscation, right? Obfuscation is great, but not sufficient. You have to think about anti-tampering, anti-debugging, and how do you think about these things, integrity checking, and so on. And the other conversation I find myself having quite a bit is we're also focused on data. We forget about encryption keys. Mm-hmm. It is complex, right? It almost seems like, it's like people will buy the most expensive vault, but then everybody can find the key. And I'm like, right. What's the point? So, that's a great point. You can use the greatest encryption algorithm in the world, but you've got to protect your keys. And I'm so glad we're able to, partner with you guys and protect your data, your keys, and your business logic, right? It's the new IP. Your mobile app is essentially your new IP these days.
Yeah, exactly right.
Is there certain certifications that leveraging our technology helped with? Were there some where it was easier to convince them that you guys were doing the right thing?
That's a great question. When you're working in disruptive technologies, which is what we're doing, we're bringing to market technologies and solutions that have never been achieved before in the space. And in order to do that, and show, we have to prove essentially that we're have all the securities necessary to protect data. We're running on that gray line that's there. There is no security standards for what we're doing. There are no previous entrants to the space that are doing what we're doing. So we had to essentially justify ourselves to the card brands, the Visas, the MasterCards, American Expresses, Discovers, so that they could understand that what we're doing is not only relevant, but it's also secure enough to protect not only them as a brand, but their consumers, all the cardholders. So having Zimperium in place and being able to leverage your expertise in that area was able to show and justify to them just one element of where our security framework was stood up strong enough to be able to handle at least the initial proof use cases for this technology. And as Andrew had said early on, our first model and use case around that was our Felix terminal application and the code protection that you provided to us. And that the reason we went that road is because there's already a known quantity with respect to what security requirements are in place. So the PCI came out with CPOC, which is essentially mobile payments on a consumer off-the-shelf device. And there were certain requirements there, but they've evolved even in the past year and a half. So, again, it's a thin line that we're driving through, but that's how innovation is done. You don't innovate by doing the standard status quo. You innovate by disrupting and showing what else is possible with these solutions. But again, in order to actually get the industry or the stakeholders that are there to support things, making sure that they feel comfortable with it, takes having great vendors like Zimperium in order to really get it off the ground.
The other thing that comes to mind, convincing the regulatory gods on one side, but when you folks work with your customers, right, how much does that help kind of garner trust that you folks are invested in security and doing the right thing? How much does it come up?
Andrew, why don't you jump on that one?
Quintessential. It is. We were in discussions even just yesterday with one of the acquirers, and they kind of alluded to us or was talking to us about how much control they have on their entire infrastructure, one of kind of the highest levels of control in the payments industry, and getting into our technology and kind of how we have our various levels of security stacked up, was able to go toe to toe with some of these big players. And it is absolutely quintessential that, as we go into the market, and enable these players that they have the trust in us, that we can get it done and that there's not going to be any leaks on the back end. I mean, having a technology, a company like ours that's disruptive always has an element of kind of insecurity going into these relationships. And one of the first things and one of the best ways to get over that is providing that level of security and ensuring them that with our partners that we do have a really impenetrable solution.
It's fantastic to hear. So I'm assuming we're going to be tapping our way to the future for a while. So trends, right? What do you guys think? What's the next 5 years? It seems like a far way, but what do you guys think? What's the future looking like here?
That as a payment geek for as long as I've been in this space, I've seen so many things evolve since the early 90s, even pre-internet days when I started in the payment space. So, there's been so many, new entrants and new things that have come to market and innovations. Where I'm seeing things really trending right now, obviously digital currencies are a very strong conversation, and kind of people are still kind of curious, how is this really going to impact us in the future? And I have no doubt that digital currencies, however they're going to look, whether they be regulated or not, will have a play throughout the rest of our history around payments. To me, there's leveraging cloud technology again in payments. It's amazing to think that this hasn't happened prior, but it just hasn't. And I think we're now at that forefront of seeing an evolution in the payment space, and that's going to be really key, wrapping itself in and around the cloud technology side of things more. And so just in the conversations that we have and the use cases that we're talking through with, again, the entire payment ecosystem, everyone knows and believes that cloud technology and cloud payment technology in particular is going to be a game changer for the entire space, because it creates it really just eliminates all these different barriers and creates these new and exciting opportunities to create new, technologies that can come to market much more quickly. Another element that I'm a little bit kind of been following very closely is ubiquitous biometrics. China's, the Far East has really been kind of spearheading what biometric payments looks like, being able to connect your, a wallet essentially to your biometric profile without a device in your hand. So imagine being able to go to the gas station, use your face as your payment type on a camera, never having to pull out a card, never having to tap a card, never having to pull out your phone. It just creates, again, new use cases that are only possible when you have cloud technology. So, the cloud again, to me, is really the core component that allows all these other things to happen. And one of the other elements I think you touched on earlier, Krishna, is QR code-based solutions. The ability to enable consumers to process or consume, be a consumer, without having to go through additional hoops to alleviate those friction points, are very relevant. And I enjoy using them when I go out to eat or at a movie theater, or that kind of technology presents itself. So there's so many other innovations that are coming to market that I think to look out for. I think biometrics, cloud, digital currencies, more QR code technologies are really critical to that. And I know Andrew has some ideas and other thoughts as well.
Yeah, for sure. And listen, I echo on the technology side, definitely, what Noah said, and kind of putting my CFO hat back on, I can say safely, and those that follow the markets and follow some of the, M&A activity is payments and banking is going through a very disruptive time. There's a lot of money going into these types of companies. The valuations are completely off the charts. So I don't see that as a trend changing for quite a while. And for folks that are in the payment space, I think it's extremely exciting to have that capital behind a lot of these initiatives and support these types of things, and to really have, it's one thing to have disruptive technology, but as many know, it's not just that to get a business off the ground and to really make change. It does require good timing, and I think we have hit that as well. But like I said, to have those multiples and the dry powder behind these initiatives, especially in North America, I think is going to be quite exciting now and for the future to come.
It's amazing. I cannot, as Noah was chatting, I was thinking, I said I never pulled my credit card out anymore. Looks like I'm not going to be pulling out my phone anymore. Right?
You
Absolutely.
Just walk up, blink twice, and take your candy bars, right? And that's it.
That would be good. Phone keeps getting bigger and bigger, and they don't even fit in my wallet anymore. So it's like, I left it in my car.
Yeah, and then there's a lot of use cases where you're going for a run or you're doing some exercise. You don't want to carry around your phone. You don't want to carry around a card, and it's again. What we're seeing is more trends to reduce friction, to eliminate the friction points, and to make it easier for consumers to do commerce. And I really feel that that's the trend.
100%. And this is kind of where from a Zimperium standpoint, what you folks are doing and being part of this journey is extremely important for us, right? for us, one side of our business truly is protecting mobile apps and what they represent, right? And you folks mentioned as well, when we think about securing mobile apps, we're helping educate businesses and companies building these applications that you have to think this from development through runtime, right? It's one thing to build an app that does what you think is cool, but then to put it out there for anybody to download and then look at it, right? I mean, think the web application world never had this problem. You weren't giving your code away to someone in GitHub, right? But the mobile world, definitely different, running on so many different hardware, just like you folks see. And a big part of our security vision has been, especially when we think about application shielding and protecting your app and keys, is to get away from hardware, right? Our Z Keybox solution, as you see, is also based on that fundamental notion that you can rely on hardware to provide some sense of security with Enclave and some of these things, but there's no guarantee your app is running on secure hardware to begin with, right? So how do you get away from this notion and let your app run on any hardware globally, right? So a lot of our security and our thinking is around secure the mobile app, build it the right way, but also embed some intelligence so that it knows when someone's trying to tamper with the app, right? If someone trying to abuse your data, there's malware sitting on the device that's trying to steal credentials, steal payment info. So that's kind of where we focus as a company, is build the app the right way and embed the right intelligence in it so that it can protect itself as well, because there's no predicting what it's running on, right? Hardware fragmentation is incredible in the mobile space. So we're really excited again, but as I look at what we're headed as a company and partnering with you folks to see what else you folks do, really exciting.
Yeah, Krishna, you bring up a great point there, and I just want to touch on that. It's what we call attestation, as where, they're working on a device is great, or working on having a mobile application like ours that is running on an Android device, for example, but that doesn't pertain or doesn't restrict people from, what is it called, jailbreaking their phones and then trying to steal data through those different pathways. And the obfuscation or the code obfuscation is one thing, but the attestation and being able to monitor those threats are critical to our technology. As soon as we've identified, we're utilizing your ZDefend product, as soon as we see any potential breach of any of the data sets, any of the transmissions, we immediately sever that connection. And that's due to that piece of technology, and that's a really critical component to really any mobile or payment application in general, especially when you're utilizing a cloud technology, because it's not on board the device. It's not constantly monitoring that from the secure device that's been off the shelf. But utilizing this type of technology is critical to making sure that those vulnerabilities and threats are caught early on in that process to terminate those sessions.
Yeah, the question that always makes for a great conversation when we talk to prospects and customers is, can you actually see what's going on in the app? Once you push it out there, and most of the times they don't, right?
Yep.
They don't have something. And, once they understand the type of visibility we provide, it's so eye-opening. They're like, oh, we didn't know we could see this stuff. That's where our journey starts with a lot of our prospects and customers. Thank you both for a great conversation. I'm looking to see if there are any questions. Ooh, I seem to have lost my question box. Okay, I had one or two questions if you guys would entertain me for a few minutes longer.
Sure.
Early adopters, who have been some of your early adopters of your tech?
That's a great question. From an early adoption side, where our focus has been is really in the acquirer space, working with the majors in North America. Then they're critical components, as Andrew again was talking to earlier, going through these acquirer certifications. Getting the buy-in from those partners is absolutely critical to making sure this technology is able to be used, because without those certifications, we are really just a terminal provider. Our terminal just happens to be in the cloud, but without those certifications to those acquirers, we can never connect the transaction payload to actually run its approval process. So the early adopters, from my opinion, have really been in that acquiring space. We've been fortunate enough to have also the support of the card brands to push these initiatives through these networks and through the rest of the ecosystem in North America. So outside of that, other early adopters are a lot of mobile POS application solution providers, not necessarily payment applications, but companies that want to embed or have payment functionality as part of their application, moving away from having to require or use a dongle or a third-party reader, as it speeds their time to revenue. It also advances their position to be able to generate more revenue. And then from a merchant perspective, working through various use cases, from mobility merchants to enterprise merchants, and everything in between. Those are really where the early adoptions have been coming from. Again, disruptive technology doesn't get adopted very quickly. You have to prove things out, and that's what we're in the process of doing today, is really proving out where this technology can go, its power, its capability, its ability to scale very quickly. So again, we've been really fortunate to have the car brand support with this, but I think the acquirers are really been where we're seeing most of our early adoption from.
Wow. Yeah, that would not have been my first guess, but that's fascinating. As we kind of unmarry the hardware and software, are there certain features within Android that you think will help you guys just kind of accelerate what you're doing? Is there anything exciting that they're doing? I mean, I'm sure they're watching what you guys are doing because you're disrupting this industry. Do you think are there any hardware type things or software things they're doing in the phones that can help you accelerate?
Go ahead, Andrew.
We've been in discussions, frankly, with Google and folks like that, and I think maybe not so much features, but I think what's really interesting is, we align very much on the idea of enablement, right? Android as an OS is a platform that really is out there for folks to build on top of. It's not something that they want to try to keep close to their chest. They try to open it up to really enable industries and enable folks to get creative and build new things. And we are very much aligned with that. And I think that that's really kind of where the marriage of partnerships or opportunities like that may come along. Feature wise, I can't say or what's coming up that's feature specific would be helping us. I mean, like Noah has said on many occasions, as a cloud solution, we are just so nimble. I think that it's going to be an exciting few years as those features come out. How do we incorporate it into our offering, and how do we build together to create really unique solution and feature sets on the device for the user experience?
Oh, that's great. With that, come to the end of our wonderful conversation. Again, folks, for all of you of this listening, thank you for taking the time listening to a fantastic conversation. Again, if you would like more information about what Andrew and Noah are doing, sales@payfelix.com, visit their website, got a ton of great information. If you're looking to understand how we're partnering with them on securing what they're doing, mobile app security in general, please feel free to reach out to us at info@zimperium.com. Noah, Andrew, thank you so much. Fun talking to you all, and I'm sure we'll have several more great conversations. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Krishna. Appreciate it. Take care.